In the small town of Maplewood, where everyone knew each other's names and secrets were hard to keep, a shocking incident unfolded that would shake the community to its core. Officer Jake Thompson, a well-respected member of the Maplewood Police Department, was involved in a routine traffic stop that spiraled into chaos. The incident began innocently enough with a young man named Marcus Reed driving home from work late one night. Unbeknownst to him, this encounter would change his life forever. As Officer Thompson approached Marcus's car, he noticed the young man's nervous demeanor. The officer, known for his strict adherence to the law, asked Marcus for his license and registration. In a moment of panic, Marcus fumbled with his wallet, dropping it on the floor of the passenger seat. Thompson, sensing an opportunity to assert his authority, demanded that Marcus step out of the vehicle. The situation escalated quickly, with Thompson accusing Marcus of being uncooperative and suspicious. What happened next was captured on the officer's body camera. In the footage, Thompson could be seen using excessive force, pushing Marcus against the car and handcuffing him. The young man pleaded for understanding, explaining that he was just trying to get home after a long shift at the diner. But Thompson, fueled by a sense of power and perhaps a touch of prejudice, continued to escalate the situation, ultimately arresting Marcus on charges of resisting arrest and disorderly conduct. The incident would have likely faded into the background of small-town life, but a bystander had recorded the entire encounter on their phone. The footage quickly went viral, igniting outrage among the community and drawing the attention of local news outlets. People began to question the integrity of Officer Thompson, who had always been seen as a pillar of the community. The mayor called for an investigation, and the police department found itself under scrutiny. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Thompson had lied about the events of that night. In his official report, he claimed that Marcus had threatened him and that he had acted in self-defense, but the footage told a different story. It showed a young man who was scared and confused, not a violent criminal. The community rallied behind Marcus, demanding justice and accountability. The case was set to go to trial, and the courtroom was packed with supporters of both Marcus and Officer Thompson. The tension was palpable as the judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Eleanor Hayes, prepared to hear the evidence. She had a reputation for being fair but firm, and everyone knew she wouldn't tolerate any nonsense in her courtroom. As the trial began, the prosecution presented their case, highlighting the discrepancies between Thompson's testimony and the video evidence. They called witnesses who had seen the incident unfold, each one corroborating Marcus's account of the events. The defense, however, was determined to protect Thompson's reputation. They painted Marcus as a troublemaker, someone who had a history of run-ins with the law. But the turning point came when the prosecution played the body camera footage in court. The room fell silent as everyone watched the events unfold on the screen. The video showed Thompson's aggressive behavior, his unjustified use of force, and Marcus's desperate pleas for help. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as the truth became undeniable. Judge Hayes watched intently, her expression unreadable. After the footage played, the defense attempted to downplay its significance, arguing that it was just one perspective of the incident, but the jury was already swayed. They had seen the truth, and it was hard to ignore. As the trial continued, more evidence came to light, including testimonies from other officers who had witnessed Thompson's behavior in the past. It became clear that this was not an isolated incident but part of a troubling pattern. As the days turned into weeks, the community remained on edge. Protests erupted outside the courthouse, with people demanding justice for Marcus and accountability for Officer Thompson. The media coverage intensified, and the case became a national story, shining a light on issues of police misconduct and systemic racism. Finally, after a long and arduous trial, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom was filled with tension as the foreman stood to deliver the news. We find the defendant, Officer Jake Thompson, guilty of excessive force and misconduct. The words hung in the air, and a wave of emotion washed over the room. Marcus's supporters erupted in cheers, while Thompson's family sat in stunned silence. In the aftermath of the trial, the community began to heal. Marcus became a symbol of resilience and hope, using his experience to advocate for change within the police department. Officer Thompson, on the other hand, faced the consequences of his actions, losing his job and facing criminal charges. The fallout from the trial rippled through Maplewood, forcing the town to confront its own biases and the systemic issues within its law enforcement. Town hall meetings became a regular occurrence, with citizens passionately discussing the need for reform and accountability. Marcus, now a local hero, found himself at the forefront of these discussions, sharing his story and urging others to speak out against injustice. As the months passed, the police department implemented new training programs focused on de-escalation techniques and community engagement. Officer Thompson's actions had sparked a movement, and the community was determined to ensure that such an incident would never happen again. However, not everyone was on board with the changes. Some officers felt threatened by the new policies, fearing that their authority was being undermined. One evening, as Marcus was leaving a community meeting, he was approached by a group of officers who had been supportive of Thompson. They confronted him, accusing him of ruining their colleague's life and undermining the police force. Marcus stood his ground, explaining that he was not against the police but rather against the abuse of power. The tension in the air was thick, and for a moment, it felt as if the fragile peace in Maplewood was about to shatter. Meanwhile, Officer Thompson, now a pariah in the community, struggled to cope with the consequences of his actions. He had lost his job, his reputation, and the respect of his peers. Isolated and angry, he began to spiral, blaming everyone but himself for his downfall. He spent his days in a haze of bitterness, convinced that he had been wronged. In his mind, he was still the hero of the story, fighting against a perceived threat to his authority. As the anniversary of the incident approached, Marcus decided to hold a community event to promote healing and unity. He invited everyone, including the police department, to participate in a day of dialogue and understanding. The event was designed to foster communication between the community and law enforcement, allowing both sides to share their experiences and perspectives. On the day of the event, the park was filled with people from all walks of life. There were booths for local organizations, food trucks, and activities for children. Marcus spoke passionately about the importance of empathy and understanding, urging everyone to listen to one another. The atmosphere was hopeful, and for the first time in a long while, it felt as if the community was coming together. However, not all officers were willing to engage. A small group, including some of Thompson's former colleagues, stood off to the side, arms crossed and scowls on their faces. They refused to participate, believing that the event was a betrayal of their profession. Their presence served as a reminder that the road to healing would not be easy. As the day progressed, a panel discussion was held, featuring community leaders, activists, and a few officers who were open to dialogue. The conversation was candid, with participants sharing their experiences and frustrations. One officer spoke about the pressure to conform to a culture of silence within the department, while a community member recounted their own negative encounters with law enforcement. The exchange was raw and emotional, highlighting the deep-seated issues that needed to be addressed. Just as the discussion was gaining momentum, a commotion erupted at the edge of the park. A group of protesters, angry about the changes in the police department, had arrived to voice their dissent. They shouted slogans and waved signs, demanding that the police be held accountable for their actions. The atmosphere shifted, and tension filled the air as the two groups faced off. Marcus, sensing the potential for violence, stepped forward, urging both sides to remain calm. He called for a moment of silence, asking everyone to reflect on the pain and anger that had brought them to this point. Slowly, the shouting subsided, and the crowd fell silent. In that moment, it became clear that healing would require more than just dialogue. It would require a commitment to understanding and change from both sides. As the event concluded, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but he was determined to keep pushing for progress. The community had taken a significant step forward, but there was still much work to be done. In the following months, Marcus continued to advocate for reform, working closely with local leaders and organizations. He organized workshops and training sessions, bringing in experts to educate both the community and the police on issues of bias, mental health, and conflict resolution. The police department began to see the value in these initiatives, and slowly, relationships began to improve. Meanwhile, Officer Thompson remained a shadow of his former self. He struggled to find work and faced mounting financial pressures. His anger festered, and he became increasingly isolated. One night, in a moment of desperation, he reached out to Marcus, asking for a chance to explain his side of the story. Marcus was taken aback but agreed to meet, hoping that perhaps there was a path to understanding. Their meeting was tense, with Thompson initially defensive and unapologetic. He recounted his version of the events, insisting that he had acted out of fear and a desire to protect himself. Marcus listened patiently, trying to understand the officer in number 39's perspective while also holding him accountable for his actions. As the conversation progressed, Thompson began to show cracks in his bravado, revealing the deep-seated insecurities and pressures he faced as a police officer. Marcus seized the opportunity to share his own experiences, explaining how the incident had affected his life and the lives of those around him. He spoke about the fear and mistrust that had developed in the community towards law enforcement, emphasizing that it was not just about him, but about the broader implications of police misconduct. Thompson, for the first time, seemed to grasp the weight of his actions and the ripple effect they had caused. As they continued to talk, a sense of empathy began to build between them. Marcus realized that Thompson was not just a villain but a product of a flawed system, much like the community he had harmed. They discussed the need for change within the police force, acknowledging that both sides had a role to play in rebuilding trust. By the end of their meeting, there was a tentative understanding, a flicker of hope that perhaps they could work together to foster change. In the following weeks, Marcus and Thompson began to collaborate on community outreach initiatives. They organized joint events aimed at bridging the gap between law enforcement and residents, focusing on education and open dialogue. Their partnership was met with skepticism from both sides, but they persevered, determined to show that healing was possible. As they worked together, Thompson began to confront his own biases and the culture of silence that had permeated the police department. He attended workshops and training sessions, actively engaging in discussions about accountability and reform. The transformation was not easy. He faced backlash from some of his colleagues who felt betrayed by his willingness to engage with the community. Yet, he pressed on, motivated by a desire to make amends for his past mistakes. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to advocate for systemic change, pushing for policies that would ensure accountability and transparency within the police force. He became a prominent voice in the movement for reform, speaking at conferences and engaging with lawmakers to push for legislative changes. His story resonated with many, and he found himself at the forefront of a growing movement for justice. As the months turned into years, the community of Maplewood began to heal. The police department implemented new policies focused on community engagement and de-escalation techniques, and the relationship between law enforcement and residents improved significantly. Marcus and Thompson's partnership became a model for other communities grappling with similar issues, demonstrating that change was possible through understanding and collaboration. However, the journey was not without its challenges. There were still moments of tension and conflict, particularly when incidents of police misconduct made headlines. Each time, Marcus and Thompson would come together to address the concerns of the community, emphasizing the importance of accountability and the need for continued dialogue. One day, as they were preparing for another community event, Thompson received a call from a former colleague who had been involved in a controversial incident. The officer was seeking advice on how to navigate the fallout from the situation, and Thompson found himself torn. He wanted to help but also recognized the need for accountability. He turned to Marcus for guidance, and together they crafted a response that emphasized the importance of transparency and the need for officers to take responsibility for their actions. Their collaboration not only strengthened their bond but also reinforced the message that change required courage and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. As they continued to work together, they became advocates for a new model of policing, one that prioritized community engagement, accountability, and empathy. As the anniversary of the original incident approached, Marcus decided to hold a commemorative event to reflect on the progress made and the work still to be done. The event was designed to honor those who had been affected by police misconduct while also celebrating the strides made towards reform. The community came together, sharing stories of resilience and hope, and the atmosphere was one of unity and determination. During the event, Marcus took the stage to address the crowd. He spoke passionately about the importance of continued advocacy and the need for everyone to remain vigilant in the fight for justice. He acknowledged the challenges they had faced but emphasized that they had come together as a community to create meaningful change. Thompson stood beside him, a symbol of the possibility for redemption and growth. As the event concluded, the crowd erupted in applause, a testament to the progress made and the work still ahead. Marcus and Thompson exchanged a knowing glance, understanding that their journey was far from over. They had forged an unlikely partnership, one that had transformed not only their lives but the lives of countless others in Maplewood. In the years that followed, their story became a beacon of hope for communities across the country grappling with similar issues. They traveled together, sharing their experiences and advocating for reform, inspiring others to confront their own biases and work towards a more just society. Their journey was a reminder that change was possible, even in the face of adversity, and that healing could emerge from the most painful of circumstances. As they continued their advocacy, Marcus and Thompson encountered various challenges, including pushback from those resistant to change. Some community members remained skeptical of Thompson and Number 39's intentions, while others within the police force felt threatened by the new direction. Yet, they pressed on, believing that their partnership could serve as a model for reconciliation and understanding. One day, they were invited to speak at a national conference on police reform. The event brought together leaders from across the country, each sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. Marcus and Thompson took the stage together, their presence symbolizing the power of collaboration. They spoke candidly about their journey, the lessons learned, and the importance of empathy in bridging the divide between law enforcement and the community. Their story resonated deeply with the audience, sparking discussions about the need for systemic change and the role of community engagement in policing. As they left the stage, they were met with a standing ovation, a testament to the impact of their message. It was a moment of validation, reinforcing their belief that they were on the right path. In the months that followed, their efforts began to bear fruit. Other communities reached out for guidance, eager to replicate the success they had achieved in Maplewood. Marcus and Thompson became sought-after speakers, sharing their insights and strategies for fostering dialogue and understanding. They developed training programs for police departments, focusing on building trust and accountability. However, their journey was not without its setbacks. One evening, as they were preparing for another community event, they received news of a high-profile incident involving police misconduct in a neighboring town. The community was outraged, and protests erupted, reigniting tensions and fears. Marcus and Thompson knew they had to act quickly to address the concerns and provide support. They organized a town hall meeting, inviting community members and law enforcement to come together and discuss the incident. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as people shared their experiences and frustrations. Marcus and Thompson facilitated the discussion, emphasizing the importance of listening and understanding each other and Number 39's perspectives. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that healing would require more than just dialogue. It would necessitate a commitment to accountability and change. They proposed the establishment of a community oversight board, composed of residents and law enforcement representatives, to ensure transparency and foster trust. The idea was met with mixed reactions, but Marcus and Thompson remained steadfast in their belief that it was a necessary step towards progress. In the weeks that followed, they worked tirelessly to gather support for the oversight board. They held meetings, engaged with community leaders, and sought input from residents. Slowly but surely, momentum began to build, and the community started to rally behind the initiative. It was a testament to the power of collaboration and the willingness to confront difficult truths. As the proposal moved forward, Marcus and Thompson faced opposition from some within the police department who felt threatened by the idea of oversight. They knew that change would not come easily, but they remained committed to their vision. They organized a series of workshops for officers, focusing on the benefits of community engagement and the importance of accountability in building trust. The day of the vote on the oversight board arrived, and the atmosphere in the community was electric. Residents gathered at the town hall, eager to voice their opinions and make their voices heard. Marcus and Thompson stood together, ready to present their case. They spoke passionately about the need for transparency and accountability, emphasizing that the board would serve as a bridge between law enforcement and the community. As the vote was cast, tension filled the air. The results were announced, and the community erupted in cheers as the proposal passed. It was a historic moment for Maplewood, a testament to the power of collaboration and the commitment to change. Marcus and Thompson embraced, knowing that their efforts had made a difference. In the months that followed, the Oversight Board was established, and its members began to work diligently to foster communication and accountability within the police department. The board held regular meetings, providing a platform for residents to voice their concerns and for officers to engage with the community. It was a significant step towards rebuilding trust and ensuring that the voices of the community were heard. As the years passed, Maplewood became a model for other communities seeking to address issues of police misconduct and community relations. Marcus and Thompson continued their advocacy, traveling to share their story and inspire others to take action. They became symbols of hope, demonstrating that change was possible through understanding and collaboration. Their journey was a reminder that healing takes time and effort, but with commitment and empathy, communities could come together to create a better future. As they looked back on their experiences, Marcus and Thompson knew that their partnership had transformed not only their lives, but the lives of countless others. They had turned a painful incident into a catalyst for change, proving that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path towards healing and understanding.